Okay, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I'm going to call to order the special closed council meeting for later. And with that, I will recess it until after the open and closed general purposes committee meetings. And now I'll go to the general purposes committee, the open. May I, first of all, I'll call it to order. May I have a motion on the minutes?
So moved.
Any discussion, errors or omissions? All those in favor, opposed, carried. So we start off with a delegation. We have representation from the Army, Navy, and Air Force Veterans in Canada, Unit 284 in Steveston, who wish to speak to us. So please, sirs, come on forward. Have a seat there. And if you could introduce yourselves, and delegation is given 5 minutes.
Yes, I'm Walter Cadwallader, volunteer member of the 284 Veterans Association.
Mark Grattan, volunteer member, 284 ANAF.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay, well, we're here to represent the 284. We're volunteer members. We've had a rough time with the club over the COVID and such, but in the meantime, we've kept the place open, but we've had a very hard time financially. But we support over 30 charities and raise 30 to 50,000 to give away to those charities per year. COVID left us without reserve funds, and we're here to ask the council to give us some relief and or forgive taxes for the year. Hopefully, at the worst case, is to defer those taxes. In Manitoba and Ontario, veterans do not pay property taxes. The associations don't pay property taxes. We are a not-for-profit organization and run on all volunteers. Our motto at the club is shoulder to shoulder, and we'd ask the same of you. Please help us out if you can.
All right, just so we'll have the details of what you're suggesting. You're saying that deferral would be an option. Deferral for how long?
Well, we're obviously an open book charitable organization, not for profit, and we are revitalizing the unit and changing it, and we believe that it will be making money. And as soon as it makes money, it will be public knowledge. And we're not doing it to build up a fund for anything else. The money that we raise to give away is marked for that, and that's all we can do with it is give it away. We can't pay our taxes with it. But we believe in the future, we're hiring different staff and people that have experience in making money. And when we make money, we would pay that tax back, but we would allow the council be privy to our books, and when we make money, we'll pay it back, and we intend to make money.
All right, we have a couple questions. First of all, we'll go to Councillor Day.
Thank you very much. Am I on? Okay. Thank you very much for coming forward. I know I've donated free signs to the club to try to bring more people in. I'm just curious, have you got like new management yet? Because it seemed like part of the problem was, given your incredible location, that you weren't maximizing the opportunity to bring in the public.
That's exactly what we've done. We have a new manager with a lot of experience and a very good reputation that is coming for lesser money that he would normally make, but he has the good of the community and of the association at heart. And I think that he can do a wonderful job for us.
Has that manager started yet?
He's about to start. He'll be starting at the first of the month.
Perfect, okay. And then what about the board? Because I know there was some sort of old-fashioned ideas on the old board. Have you got a new board that's willing to embrace new ideas?
We're operating with a what do you call ourselves? A committee at this time, and there will be, voting will be in December for the new board. And I think it will just be a part of the committee. We have the support of membership. We've had meetings with membership, and I think we can go forward quite smoothly.
Okay, that's great. And so you've raised $30,000 to $50,000 for charities. Is that per year?
Yes.
Okay, good. That's all my questions. Thank you.
Councillor Heed.
Yes, how much money were you looking at?
The taxes, we're in arrears just under $50,000. We made a token payment of $5,000 because it was all that was at hand,
And what's your membership numbers?
500, roughly. We're rising. Since the committee has taken over, we've come up by 20% or
At
something.
least, yes.
And how long do you anticipate you'll be in arrears for your taxes until you start to go to positive? Just give me a rough idea, is what I want.
Well, we believe that we can start paying taxes next year. And if we had these ones spread over at least 5 years, we'd be comfortable.
Thank
But
you.
we're looking for, a relief on these taxes because this is not a bar that is open like others to make money and make profits. It's an entirely different thing. It's a community club.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you. That concludes.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
I'd like to, yes, we'll excuse you. I'd like our solicitor to comment on this. Is this viable to consider funding this organization in this way?
Through your worship, I have reviewed the facts in this situation, and the use for which the exemption or permissive tax exemption is being sought are commercial uses. The fact that it is undertaken by a nonprofit is immaterial. There is a provision in the community charter which prohibits assistance to business. Business is defined to include activity as well as commercial undertaking. So when you have a nonprofit using premises for a principal use that is commercial in nature, that is caught by the prohibition and would not be permitted. So in my opinion, your worship, there is no opportunity for a permissive exemption under these circumstances.
What about, well, in terms of taxes, how long does an organization, or how long does a landowner have to pay taxes before there's some kind of a tax sale or some other default provision?
That would be 3 years, your worship.
All right. Is there any kind of grant program, to your knowledge, that would include this type of organization?
To my knowledge, your worship, no, there wouldn't be. For one reason, it offends the section 25 of the community charter, which is the prohibition against assistance to business. And second, there is no deferral opportunity. I do recall during the COVID time, there were opportunities through special legislation or enactments of the provincial government that allowed deferrals, but we're no longer in the pandemic period where those orders are in place. And so the rules that apply to property tax apply equally to nonprofits and residents of Richmond that have to pay taxes.
All right, Councillor Day.
Are there any businesses in Richmond that are, like, I'm thinking of the, like, Raps Charity Store or the Salvation Army Store, where they're a business, but they're also 100% a charity. Do they get any exemptions?
I would have to defer the list of exemptions. I don't have those myself. I'd have to defer to the manager of taxation.
Can you help us out?
Through your worship to Councillor Day, so any nonprofit organization that are receiving any permissive exemptions in Richmond are on city property, and city property would be statutorily exempted if not otherwise leased.
So like, I'm thinking of the hospital auxiliary store and the wrap store and the, I mean, there's so many in Richmond, the SPCA store, so they're all paying full taxes?
No, any nonprofit like RAPS is exempt because they are on city property. They're being leased from a city property, which would be otherwise statutorily exempted.
But we don't own the building at Francis and St. Albans. Are you thinking about the building in the Auto Mall
Number 4 road, yeah.
or number?
Through your worship to Councillor Day.
Thank you.
Those
Just a minute.
organizations,
Go ahead.
sorry, those organizations who are not on city property, that are nonprofit, they do pay full taxes.
Okay, it's only the ones that are on city property?
That is correct.
Okay. I'm wondering if we should refer this to staff to take a closer look at this and see if there are any options, maybe a loophole that we might have missed or something.
Well, we do have your memo that
Yes.
you gave us the other day, and from our law department as well,
Yes,
which that was the conclusion you came to and
right.
gave
That
us
is
in the
correct.
form of a memo. All right, Councillor Heed.
I'm struggling here because recognizing what 284 does, and been in this community for so long, I would really hate to see them have to close their doors. There's got to be something we can come up with, Mayor, and I know you're trying. I noticed on your question, we're looking for something for this. So I'm not about to give up on this yet. I think there's more we have to look at. There's more we have to do. There's more opportunities in working with them, maybe guiding them and you know, whatever we can guide them in to assist them so they can keep their doors open. You know, this, when you go in debt $50,000 right away just for taxes, it's going to be difficult for you to keep your head above ground. And so I think we should be looking for something. We should be doing whatever we can to assist 284 in keeping their doors open. And I would really hate to see us just float this down and say, too bad, pay your taxes or you're gone.
So what is your suggestion?
My Councillor Day actually started to talk a little bit about this. I think we refer this right back to staff and we bring in the people we can to work with 284 to come up with a solution, not why we can't do it, but figure out how we can do it. And so that would be my motion that I'd like to put on the floor at this time.
Well, I just want to clarify, first of all, if we can refer it to staff, to have staff take a look at the situation and see if there's some rock that needs to be unturned to see whether there can be assistance, what the levers are. Now, we already have the memo, so we can do that. But I don't think that we would refer to staff to go out and hire consultants and.
No,
look
I'm
for-
not asking that.
Okay, so you just want staff to
Another-
take a further look at the situation to see whether there's some way that assistance would be possible in some way.
Correct.
Okay, is that seconded? Okay, the one thing I would add to that is if there is any possibility, there would also have to be, the Army Navy unit would have to understand that their books would have to be open to city staff to take a look at them. Okay, so that's the motion that's on the floor. Is there anything more, Councillor Heath?
That's all, Chair.
Councillor Day.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Brody. It doesn't hurt to all work together whenever possible, and I realize this is a business, but it's also a charity, and like, I'm wondering, it's a very large facility, and maybe there's an opportunity for the city of Richmond to use some of that space, especially during the day when it's not in use, to use it for various events. We know that we're going through a humongous renovation / construction of Season Community Center, and given its proximity to the community center, maybe there's opportunities there for some kind of shared opportunity that could help the club, and it could also help the community. So I really am looking for think outside the box ideas. Well, if we, like, I know we own the curling club, but we often will have events there, especially during their down season, and that really benefits the community. So I'm just really looking for creative ideas at this point.
We'll see.
Thank you.
There was someone else, I thought. The other thing to note is that it has to be a factor because the Legion is also, on Bridgeport, is also asking for dispensation of various kinds. So we're not just talking about one group, we're talking about at least two groups, and if the umbrella is wide enough, we're talking about 50 groups. So we have to keep it in perspective. So on the motion to refer to staff to take yet another look to see if steps can be taken, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. All right, so gentlemen, if you guys can liaise with our staff, there will be more discussions. Now we turn to the Zero Carbon 2023 Zero Carbon Step Code and BC Energy Step Code requirements for new buildings. Yes, Mr. Russell, Mr. Connolly. I have spoken about this with these gentlemen and suggested that we would have a short, because it's a very complex subject, we would have a short presentation first. So we'll turn it to you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess I'll aim to clarify, I'll go into some background and then talk about greenhouse gas emissions as an overview of what I want to talk about. So first and foremost, the BC Energy, there's two policy tools at play. You have the BC Energy Step Code and the Zero Carbon Step Code. The Energy Step Code is really about efficiency. So it looks at envelope, thickness of your building envelope. It looks at windows. It looks at your heating and cooling equipment. It's about efficiency. It delivers reductions in electricity and carbon through that efficiency, but it doesn't regulate carbon directly. So recently, this past year, the province introduced the Zero Carbon Step Code, which has prescriptions where you could regulate the carbon content of buildings in new construction. I thought it'd be instructive to take a few steps back and look at where the Energy Step Code came from and why. So a number of years ago, I believe it was in 2017 or 2018, the province, through its emission reduction plans, set a long-term target that by 2032, the base building code would be achieving ultra-efficient buildings and zero-carbon buildings as part of the base building code. Believe it or not, in 2017-2018 period, they didn't even have energy efficiency requirements in the building code. So they introduced those slowly, and they've been coming on, and they are increasing to 2032 to be at the top level of performance. And with industry stakeholders, the province created a number of working groups, and that resulted in the Energy Step Code, which has steps that gets you towards that 2032 target. And key to the implementation of the Step Code, the province allowed cities to prescribe and by law those performance requirements as they wish. So we're again shooting towards the 2032 target. Richmond, through council's direction, our target is to achieve the top performance of the Step Code by 2027. So we're 5 years ahead. When the Step Code, I'll talk about greenhouse gas emissions. When the Step Code was implemented, a metric or requirements for greenhouse gas emissions was being discussed, but it was not implemented at the time. But cities did not stop asking for GHG reduction requirements, and many cities innovated. One of those being Richmond, of course, where we implemented what we call the step-down option. So you've heard that term before, I believe, where we have a standard, say it's a step 3 performance, but you go down a lower step to step 2, and through that, the step 2 option, we would put a low carbon requirement. So since we implemented the step code in 2018, we've had from day one a step down option that biased low carbon performance. So we've been very successful in that. Many cities worked with us and followed the same approach. Now, looking at the zero carbon step code, through the different working groups that the province held with different cities and key stakeholders across all industries, this report now brings forward this zero carbon step code with this energy step code together for the first time. And ultimately, I want you to consider these as tools, policy levers or tools that we can use to achieve our own targets defined in our energy and emissions plan. So on GP9, there are the 4 descriptions of the energy step code and what it actually means. And it's quite simple, really. EL1 is our entry level, and it just requires GHG modeling and reporting to the city. There's no actual prescription for reduction of carbon. I don't believe any of our requirements that laid out in the bylaw include that metric. EL2 requires at least one major piece of equipment, whether it be a hot water tank or your main furnace or boiler system, to be zero carbon. You can achieve that through heat pumps, and many developers have been doing that in Richmond since 2018. EL3 requires that all your heating and cooling and your domestic water systems be electric. We're seeing those kind of performances already. And finally, EL4 is an all-electric building, so even gas ranges would be prohibited. You'd have all electric. So that's an overview, Mr. Chair and members of council, of what's in front of council today. I guess I would just close by saying, the step code is around efficiency. The zero carbon step code is around prescriptions for carbon reduction. Those are tools that we've been using since 2018 to achieve the long-term carbon reduction targets. Other than that, Mr. Chair, I have nothing further to add. Happy to answer questions.
Okay, we'll go to questions. The first one is in plain English that people are going to ask, are you going to, for new, I take it the new requirements are for new buildings or new construction. Are you going to cut out our gas ranges, or, in real terms, what does this mean coming up?
I'll ask Norm to answer.
Norm?
Through the chair. So there's a nuance in the BC Building Code with the adoption of the zero carbon step code. For the requirement, the top level of the step code, or top level of the zero carbon step code, it assumes an all electric building with no gas equipment, but not for smaller buildings such as single attached homes, duplexes. There you can still use ancillary uses for natural gas for things like cooking and that kind of thing. And they did that nuance in the code. It's a subtle thing, but for the most part, the top level that the zero carbon step code assumes in BC anyways, because of our low carbon grid and all electric building.
Okay, and that's what we look forward to in January 2027?
With the proposed bylaw requirements, we've set up a system that developers and home builders can choose to meet at least 2 options for the 2023 requirements and for 2025. And so what we're doing with the energy step code and the zero carbon step code, we've got a complete picture now. So we're allowing applicants to trade off performance levels between the two, so they can go to a higher or more stringent performance of the zero carbon step code and have a slight relaxation in the step code, or vice versa in that.
But and this has to be, council has to approve this, but in January 2027, you're contemplating that it's going to be to that most stringent level.
I can speak to that, Mr. Chair. Yeah, there's an OCP policy says that states by 2027 will be at the step code, top of the step code level at 2027. But the regulation in front of the council today is just for 2023.
No, I realize, but I'm looking forward.
Yes, yeah. Okay. Part of the why we're doing this forecasting the future changes, and it doesn't hold council, obviously. But part of our engagement with the builders and developers, et cetera, designers, they want to know where it's going. They have active applications that they may want to know what subject, what to design to. So through our engagement, they've asked for this.
Well, of course, the residents want to know as well. All right, so we'll go to Councillor Wolf.
Thank you. Through your worship to staff, just two questions. First one's about that table that you just showed us, and on the far right, like the mayor, I'm thinking at the end result where this gets us to, and that, so the energy level 4, the bullet above it says no natural gas equipment, and that's only for part 3. So that's residential, the medium size, the office, the retail, the hotel, but not the residential with the little mark, which is the smaller ones and the larger ones. Can you explain why those ones wouldn't have the same?
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, my understanding is from the provincial level at the Building Safety Standards Branch, there was I guess a realization that for low-rise, ground-oriented residential, there's still a desire to actually transition out of cooking from gas equipment to an electric option. And so probably allowing a bit more time for that. For larger buildings, i.e. Part 3, complex developments, the standard is there as no gas connection, basically.
Okay. Okay. My next question, similar. The next couple of pages show some charts where January 2027.
What page
This is
are
on
you
page 11, and so the far right, we're talking about Part 9 buildings. They can achieve the energy step code step 5, yet on page 13, the hotels, motels, the residential concrete, the residential wood frame, the office and retail, they cannot, there's not an option for the step 5.
Through the chair to Councillor Wolf, based on the building type, the Part 3 building the step code only has 4 steps. So step 4 for Part 3 buildings is the top step.
So they just decide not to build it to the same 5 steps that Part 9 have.
Yeah, it's
achieved it
since
in
day
less.
1. There's been 5 steps for the Part 9 smaller buildings and 3 steps for the 4 steps. Sorry.
It's good. Thanks.
All right, so all you're asking now is basically what's in the resolutions, which is the current situation, the current bylaws as identified in October 2023.
That's correct.
Okay, but you've given us a glimpse of the future. All right, may I have a motion?
So moved.
So that's moved and it's seconded. Further discussion on it? All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. Thanks, gents. And the next item is this Utilities Commission, the Regulatory Efficiency Initiative Intervenor Request. Peter?
Nothing to add, Mr. Chair.
Sorry?
Nothing to add.
Okay. Right, so it's moved and it's seconded. Any comments, questions? All those in favor? Any opposed? That is carried. May I have a motion to adjourn? Okay, we are now adjourned.